Welcome back on Kansas Sports Chatter. It's time now for our quality time interview and opportunity where we just get to spend a little bit more time with our next guest. And our very first quality time interview is none other than Hoisington football head coach Zach Baird. Zach, how's it going, man? Appreciate you coming on.
Doing good, man. It's good to see you, and thanks for having me.
Well, when I was trying to figure out, I knew when I launched this show that I wanted you to be like one of my first guests on the show. So, but then I was also trying to figure out, okay, now what do I want to talk about? Like, what specific topic did I want to talk about? And a lot of stories came up, and we could probably go different directions. But the one thing I wanted to discuss on today was more so, since you serve as primary offensive coordinator along with your head coaching duties there at Hoisington, was just your style of offense, specifically with your flexbone and your triple option offense. And I know over the years, especially over the last 3 or 4, things have kind of morphed and you've adapted to your personnel. But go back to the beginning when you took over, now going into your 12th season. But you go back to the beginning, what made you decide? What was that thought process? Okay, hey, we're going to start implementing the triple option, or specifically the flexbone offense.
It was really easy. I took over after being a DC for 3 years, and my first thought was, who could I get in touch with that does something that's been really successful? And at that time, Randy Dreiling was at Hutch, and obviously everybody knows how successful he was there. So I just kind of went through some people I knew. Dustin Damel played here at Hoisington, and he had a connection to Randy Dreiling. So used that connection and got a chance to meet Coach Dreiling, and Coach was gracious enough to sit down with me and visit with me. And, other than that, I didn't know anything about the flexbone other than that's what they did. And they were really successful with it. So that's how that came about. And that's why we started running it.
When you initially reached out to Randy, what was that first conversation like? Do you remember that first exchange between you and Randy?
Absolutely. So I didn't talk to him on the phone. I met him in person at his house in Hutch. And it's, I'm a big high school football guy. I think it's fantastic. I love it. And so meeting Coach Dreiling at his shack, as he called it, was a great experience. And I learned so much. And after 10 minutes of talking about the flex, and inside veer was the first thing we talked about. I was like, all right, Coach, what about midline? And Coach had another 8 hours left on inside veer that he was going to talk to me about. And so that was my first eye-opening experience. I have no idea what I'm doing, what I'm talking about. I just got to sit and learn as much as I possibly can. And I did. Coach Dreiling, everything we do offensively is his system. And so now, like you said, we've kind of changed a few things here and there with our personnel. But for the most part, it's still what Coach Dreiling taught at Hutch. And super thankful that he helped us out.
Any specific advice that stands out? Obviously, he went through a lot, like you mentioned, but were there any really fine details that you remember that, that Randy kind of pitched to you? They're like, okay, yeah, that's going to stick.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing I got was how much attention to detail he had and what they did. And so I think one of the things that makes us, it's helped us be successful in the flex is our ability to coach little things. And the little things really do make a big difference. And so, that out of that conversation, that was one of the biggest things I got from Coach Dreiling was the attention to detail. Like I said, after 10 minutes, I thought, okay, let's move on, and we probably covered inside veer for 8 hours. And so I think that helps our guys. The ability to coach little things, and that just allows us to be efficient and successful at what we do.
You mentioned timing and blocking, 2 areas I want to touch on. Start with timing. How big is that, especially in the backfield? What do you preach to your players as far if you're a backfield player? Is it a certain number of steps, before you take that snap, or where do you start with that timing?
Yeah, the first thing we talk to them about is everybody, all 11 guys offensively, got to be ready to sprint. And so if it's slow, it's not good, because you have bad offensive football at the beginning of years, and then you have bad flex offensive football. And the bad flex offensive football is tough to watch. So once we get people as elementary as it sounds, we've got to play fast. And as far as steps, how you teach motion and their path is big for us. But the biggest thing we preach to our backfield guys is playing fast, and whether it's motion, whether it's snap of the ball. yeah, obviously footwork's going to come into play at all positions, your quarterback, your slots, your B-back. But the biggest thing is, the first thing we emphasize is we've got to be fast across the board, especially in the backfield.
Let's go with inside veer for the blocking technique of that. Where do you start with that offensive line? What's key in executing inside veer with the flex?
Okay, so the first thing they got to know is who the rekey is. So they've got to be students a little bit, and they got to understand, we're going to read the first guy 4 eye and out. And, from there, we try to marry it to a little bit like inside zone would be in a way. And so a constraint play for us for inside veer is going to be zone dive. And so other than play side tackle, inside veer, we're going to inside veer release it and try to get skinny. Whereas if we go zone dive, we're power veer releasing that play side tackle, which it's similar, but it's not. But I would say that's the biggest thing. And then understanding for our B-back who our action key is. And so we don't want to double people up front. We will at times, but we don't really want to. And so let's say we see a good 3-tech and he's going to be our action key. We're still going to go ahead and our guard's going to right zone that if we're running the inside veer to the right. And then our B-back has to make that guard right. So if his action key shows up a little bit wider, we're going to stick our foot in the ground and change direction. And so we try to stay away from doubles as much as possible up front.
You've had a lot of really good running backs and quarterbacks that have made that offense extremely successful, and that helps. But is there a specific type that you've noticed? And whether you want to start with the B-back or the, one of your slot backs or your wing backs, is there a specific type that you've noticed that, hey, these guys are really effective in this style of offense?
I'm going to kind of steal something from Coach Dreiling here, and this is one of the things I asked him. So I don't know what I'm doing as a young coach and especially as a young OC. So I was like, Coach, what kind of defenses really give you guys trouble? And he kind of looked at me and just said, big, fast ones. And I thought, okay, that makes sense. And so for my backs, big, fast ones are really good for us. And we've been blessed. I think we've had so many good running backs over the years, and probably the best is probably Wyatt Pettigo, because I think he probably had the best combination of size and speed. But we've had so many good ones, and obviously we know we're really lucky to have those guys. And if we don't have those type of guys, we're not as successful. But I think if you're going to, it's just different. Like our slots are completely different from our Bs. Every once in a while you get a kid like Wyatt who could play any position you wanted him to. But usually your slots are a little bit smaller, and we kind of have two different slots. Our A or L, however you want to call it, is going to be a little bit smaller, going to be more of our scat back type kid. And then our C back or our R is going to be, he's going to probably be a little bit bigger, a little bit more physical, catches the ball really well. And then our B you kind of do it a couple different ways, but I'd like our B to be a kid that is probably one of our top 3 athletes on our team. He's going to get him the majority of the carries, and he's got to be a kid that's physical. So if I'm building a B-back, man, we've had some really good ones. But obviously Hunter Hanslick was excellent at it. Legend Robinson had a really good senior year after playing O-line the year before. It's got to have a burst. Taryn Kraft did a really good job of playing fast out of his stance. And we just had middle school camp just the other day, and that's kind of what we're talking to those young middle school kids about that are playing B-back. Like, guys, it's got to be an absolute sprint. And it's hard because sometimes it's really muddy, and there's trash there. Sure. But you've got to be committed because that mesh, if the mesh is screwed up, you're going to put the ball on the ground. And so it's just one of those things where they've got to be okay with running full speed into trash. And sometimes it's real clear and it's beautiful and it works that way. But the majority of the time it's not. And I think that's probably what made Wyatt so good was his ability to be dead speed in trash and just find a crease and hit it. And if you do that a lot of times, you'll crease it and then all of a sudden you're in space. And, so if I was looking for a prototypical B-back, I want a big, strong kid who necessarily may not be the fastest guy on the field, but 0 to 5 yards or 0 to 10 yards is tough to beat. So that's kind of what we're looking at. And, Preston Merlew did a little bit last year. He's going to do it a lot this year. I think Preston's done a really good job this off season about just becoming more explosive, a little bit quicker. Like I said, you may not have to be the fastest guy in the world, but you've got to be quick and explosive.
Zach, appreciate the time. Looking forward to Friday nights at Elton Brown here in Enter Sandman coming out there. Okay.
There we go. Cole, appreciate it, man. Won't be the same without you, but I know you'll be falling, man. Appreciate it though.